An astonishing number of Honda Jazz owners buy another, and the Mark IV model we're looking at here aims to keep them loyal. But the Japanese brand also needs to attract new converts to its clever little Super Mini, hence the decision to switch exclusively to a full hybrid power plant for this latest model. Plus there's an SUV-style crossover variant that aims to play to the Nissan Juke and Capture crowd. The good news is that despite the all-new battery technology, the passenger compartment is still as flexible and practical as ever.
Honda usually does things differently and has done so once more here. This car does have an engine, but it's rarely used to drive the wheels. It doesn't really have a conventional auto gearbox either. The ECVT, electronically controlled, continuously variable transmission setup that's used instead is a single ratio step-down gear that quite effectively mimics it though. Let's try to explain what's going on here with the Honda MHEV hybrid system. It's made up of a 1.5 litre petrol engine and 2 DC electric motors. The engine's main job is to act as a generator, providing battery charge for the main propulsion motor to drive the front wheels. And that's what will be happening in the hybrid drive mode that this car will revert to most of the time. But Honda wanted this car to have some fully electrified zero emissions capability too, which is why there's a second electric motor. Now in periods where the engine is operating, the additional motor harvests energy when coasting and braking and converts it to electricity, which, if it's not needed for immediate use, is then stored in a 0.86 kilowatt hour lithium-ion battery that's packaged in under the rear floor. Now this can then drive the car for short periods without any engine input, from start off, for example, or when the car switches into its second driving mode, EV drive, and that's intended for low-speed urban use. The final drive mode that the MHEV system will use is engine drive, a setting that's focused on harnessing the full 109 PS output of the hybrid powertrain for times of harsh acceleration or high-speed cruising. Now here, a clutch bypasses the pair of electric motors and allows the combustion engine to drive the front wheels directly. The result of all this cleverness is not only exceptional running cost efficiency, think 62.8 mpg and 102 grams per kilometre of CO2 on the WLTP cycle, but also superb refinement. Honda's been less successful in its efforts to improve ride quality and handling. Despite the stiff chassis and agile handling assist torque vectoring, there's not enough body control or steering feel to really encourage a high degree of driving engagement at speed through the bends. But this Jazz is a comfortable companion over long distances, and around town the combination of super light steering, great all-round visibility and the relatively high seating position combine to make this Honda an ideal urban companion too. This fourth generation Jazz certainly stands out in a sea of Super Mini sameness. Now whether you think it does that for the right reasons will be a matter of personal preference. Two versions are being offered. This standard model, which is 40mm longer than its predecessor, and it sits 10mm lower, and this alternative crossover-themed Cross-Star version, which is a little larger, higher and wider. Both continue the mini MPV styling theme of previous Jazz generations, visually emphasised by these quarter-light windows in the ultra-thin front A-pillars. In profile, the monoform silhouette with its dramatically swept-back windscreen is more recognisable as a successive part of the Jazz model line. Smooth contours follow the short nose, the long roofline and cabin-forward style of previous generations, and wheel size has been kept to 15 inches, or as in this case, 16-inch rims. If you're a typical customer of this Honda though, the main reason you'll be choosing the Jazz will be for the class-leading cleverness of its cabin. Now retaining that unique selling point whilst packaging in all the extra bulk of a fully electrified hybrid system will have massively challenged the ingenuity of Honda's designers. Time to find out how they've approached it. It certainly still feels very spacious when you take a seat behind the wheel in this clean, minimalist cabin with plenty of head and elbow room. That mini MPV feel we mentioned earlier is again very much in evidence here. The high seating position, the panoramic windscreen and these A-pillar quarter lights which give an exceptionally wide front three-quarter view. That's also aided by this slim, low-set instrument panel, which features a thin-rimmed two-spoke steering wheel borrowed from the smaller Honda E. Now through this you view a somewhat low resolution 7-inch TFT screen offering a wide range of information which can initially look somewhat randomly displayed until you figure out what everything is and why it's there. Everything else that you'll need to know can be found here on this center stack display. That will be a 9-inch Honda Connect touchscreen. That's provided you avoided entry-level trim. This includes Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, and also voice control via a Honda personal assistant. Now that offers the potential for instruction-based conversations. The seat design, it's very much improved thanks to 30mm of extra padding, and there's plenty of space to store things thanks to neat touches like this double glove box here. Time to check out the rear seat versatility that's always marked out this Jazz. Can Honda really have preserved that whilst packaging a full hybrid powertrain into this car? Well, basically, yes, they have, to a great extent anyway, which is in its own way as impressive as the hybrid tech itself. Thanks to the drivetrain's particularly compact design with its power control units, clever semiconductor technology and the super small ECVT gearbox setup, none of the electrified stuff has to sit outside the engine bay, so there's nothing to eat into passenger compartment or luggage space. And that's also meant that this car can continue to mount its fuel tank under the front seats rather than, as is more usual, under these rear ones, which has preserved one of this model line's strongest selling points, its so-called magic seat functionality. This means that, as before in a Jazz, you can lift the seat base up, cinema seat style, for the carriage of the kinds of tall items you normally wouldn't expect to be able to accommodate in a small car like this. Maybe a small potted tree you bought from the garden centre, or perhaps a bulky item of electrical equipment. The other advantage of this approach to design means that an incredible amount of rear seat legroom can be liberated. Now, Honda somewhat ambitiously claims that there's more of it than you get in a Mercedes S-Class. Whether that's true or not, we're talking near Civic standards of back seat space here. 986mm of rear legroom is by some distance a class-leading figure. And that's something further accentuated by the relatively lofty ceiling height. As suggested earlier, that central fuel tank design also benefits luggage space, although not to such a great degree as was the case with the previous generation Jazz. This model loses 50 litres of luggage capacity compared to that one. Packaging in the hybrid system hardware had to have some effect somewhere, but most customers will still find the 304-litre trunk capacity very acceptable, particularly as the trunk area is usefully square-shaped and it's accessed via this notably low loading lip. This is quite simply the most advanced Super Mini that we've ever tested. The engineering on offer here makes what you'll find beneath the bonnet of most other small hatches feel from a different and less sophisticated age. Now that Honda has managed to package it into this Jazz while still retaining most of this model line's trademark interior flexibility is deeply impressive. But can this car really justify its now higher price point? Well, we think so, yes, in mid-spec form anyway. We really can't see why you'd pay a lot more for the lifestyle look of the Cross-Star version. We'd suggest you stick instead to the essential Jazz formula. Honda certainly has, and loyal buyers will want to too. Try one of these and you'll understand why.